Hi everybody, welcome to the video for building blocks number 6, right twist. I anticipate that this will be a pretty simple block for all of us to do in comparison with some of the past blocks. Once again, I have gone ahead and just made my 6 border rows for the bottom border already, and I'm ready to begin the setup row. The setup row, once again, will include some increases and will serve as the row 1 during our first repeat. We're going to go from 48 stitches total to 60 stitches, 4 on each side being our border stitches, and 52 in the center for the body stitches. So I'm just going to demonstrate really quickly how to go about doing those increases for that first setup row. And then I think the body row pattern is pretty self-explanatory, just knits and purls in different configurations until we get to row 3, when I will demonstrate how to do that right twist. Additionally, we have what they're calling the flex stitch that is also worked in row 3. So that makes it nice and easy. Row 3 ends up being your special row, the only row that's really different with reference to working the stitches other than the way that they lie. All right, so let's get started with that setup row. We're gonna work those first 4 border stitches in seed stitch, as we have for all of the blocks. And now we're going to increase 12 stitches across the body in a pattern where we first knit 3, then knit front and back, knit 2 until the end when we knit 3 instead of knitting 2. And then we'll work the last 4 border stitches, and that'll be the end of the setup row. So here we go. We're going to knit 1, get this out of the way so you can see, 2, 3, then we're going to go in the front of our stitch, knit without pulling that stitch off, and then go into the back of the stitch, wrap again, pull off, and we'll have 2 stitches coming from where there was originally a single stitch. Then knit 2, once again, knit into the front and knit into the back, knit 2, knit front and back, and we're just going to repeat that all the way across. But in that last repeat, you're going to wind up having, you're going to do your knit front and back, and then you'll see that there are 7 stitches total left on your needle. You're going to knit 3 and then do your 4 border stitches. Okay? All right, I think this will be a very simple block, so hopefully it's nice and relaxing for all of you. And I will go ahead and work up till row 3 and then demonstrate how that row is going to work. Okay, so here's my block. I worked the setup row, and then I went ahead and worked row 2 of the body, and now we're ready to work row 3, which really is the only patterned row to speak of, in that it does the right twist stitch that we're gonna learn and the flex stitch. So let's go ahead and begin that row. So first, of course, we do the 4 border stitches in seed stitch. And then our instructions say purl 2. So 1, 2, knit 1, and then RT twice. So we're going to do that right twist twice. The right twist instructions say knit 2 stitches together without taking the stitches off the left-hand needle, re-knit the first stitch, and remove both from the left-hand needle. So I'm just going to demonstrate that really quickly. So there's our next 2 stitches. We're going to go through both of them as if we were going to knit them together. Wrap and knit. Don't pull them off the needle, separate them out a little bit. Go into that first one and knit it, and then pull them off the needle. And you can see how you just have that, it looks like one stitch leaning hard toward the right. The other stitch is kind of receded back behind it. And that is how we're going to get these columns of stitches where it looks almost as if they're all twisting toward the right. We're going to do that a second time. So scooch these 2 stitches up, go in through both, wrap, knit, in through the first one, again. All right, so now we've got those 2 columns of stitches leaning toward the right. Then we knit 1, purl 2, and then we're going to do that sort of flex stitch, which is basically like doing 1 row of knit 1, purl 1 in those sections. And it just creates this little patterned stitch, even though it's the pattern stitch on a background body of regular stockinette stitch. So that is just a matter of following those instructions. So knit 1, purl 1. It says to do it 5 times, so there's once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, knit 1, and then we go back to the little asterisk and just repeat that again. So purl 2, knit 1, do that right twist twice, go in through 2 stitches, then the first stitch, go in through 2 stitches, and the first one, knit 1, purl 2, and then knit 1, purl 1 5 times. There's once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5, knit 1, and then we're going to do that asterisk again. This is our last repeat, however, so we're going to end after the underlined stitch, which is this purl 2. Right. So this time we purl 2, knit one, right twist twice, knit one, and purl two, which is the underlined stitch. And we have those 4 border stitches remaining, which we work in seed stitch. Then we'll work row 4 and then go back up to the top and work those 4 rows. We're going to repeat it 14 times, ending our last repeat after row 3. So that row that we just worked where we're twisting the stitches will be the final row for that block. And that's about all there is to this one. I will try and do a Zoom call to catch up with everybody and see how you all are doing with all of your blocks. This is a relatively simple one that hopefully won't give you any problems. And please feel free to contact me if you have any questions about it. Okay, because this video is going to be considerably shorter than some of the others, there's just not as much to need to explain. I thought maybe we'd spend a few minutes on reading your knitting and knowing exactly where you are in this pattern. It's so simple that it might be easier to lose your place if you're not counting your pattern repeats and your rows precisely. But because of its simplicity, it's also easy to find where you are within the pattern. So we know that you are supposed to repeat these 4 rows a total of 14 times. And that's also easy to determine from the picture because you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of the flex stitch rows that occur in row 3. So you can tell how many repeats you have done by how many of those sort of raised flex stitch rows you have completed. You can see here that I have completed 3 repeats of that 4 row pattern so far. Additionally, rows 2 and 4, you may have noticed, are exactly the same as one another. So anytime you're working a wrong side row, you're working the same instructions. Row number 1 has you do that right twist 3 times, whereas in row 3, you're knitting 1 and then right twisting twice and knitting 1. So should you become confused about whether or not you are about to work a row 3 or a row 1 within your repeat, it's actually very easy to tell where you are. Say, for example, I picked this up and I didn't know where I was. Well, as I said before, I know I've worked 3 repeats, but I can also see that from the right twist rows, I can see that my rows are carrying up within that twist, and I can also see that relatively recently I worked a row 3 and I have this raised ridge. So because this column of stitches continues to carry up and hasn't been twisted over, I know that I'm about to work a row 1 so that these 2 stitches will twist. I'll work that right twist 3 times across those 6 stitches. Also, I am not working a flex stitch row because one was worked only 2 rows below where I am currently. So I am on a row 1 of my 4th repeat. So that's a good way that you can go ahead and carry on with this block without having to keep precise count of where you are, because you can always look back at what you've done and be able to tell where you are within the pattern. Okay? Hope that helps. Okay, so here is the block finished up through the 14th repeat of the 4-row pattern, ending this time having just completed a row 3 as indicated in the instructions. So now we just have to work the decrease row and the 6 border stitch rows, and the block will be completed. So I'll just show you really quickly how to do those decreases for that decrease row. Once again, we do the 4 seed stitch border stitches. And then we're going to work purl 3, purl 2 together, purl 2, repeating the purl 2 together, purl 2 across the body until the final repeat when we purl 3, and then work seed stitch over the last 4 stitches. So we'll purl 3, and then the purl 2 together is exactly how it sounds. Take those next 2 stitches, go through both of them, wrap, pull through, and that's it. Purl 2, purl 2 more together, and we're just gonna do that all the way across. The final time that you do it, you will have 7 stitches remaining, so you'll purl 3 and then seed stitch the last 4 stitches. All right, and then the next time I turn the camera on, I'll have the finished block blocked and ready to go.